Morning. Is it even on? It's on. Uh, you may think that the number stated in the video text is a high number, but Japan starts with 1,500 trillion yen in debt. And it has this thing called quantitative easing, which is essentially the government noticing that if its inflation is below 2%, it can print money and raise the inflation. This raises the interest rate. And in my previous run, I reduced or completely removed the quantitative easing policy, which should have reduced the interest rate to perhaps 1% because of having a deflation of 2%. But it had no effect on the interest rate, which means that the debt is actually unpayable. If you have a negative interest rate, then the debt may very well be payable because the debt has a very, very low interest rate for the government. If it's very much a deficit, you might even get as much as a 0.25% interest on a government loan, and then it's very easy to pay back. So I'm doing a 500 trillion yen debt instead. That's only because the game doesn't reduce the interest rate when I reduce the policy or remove the policy of quantitative easing. If it reduced the interest rate to 1 after I removed the quantitative easing, then I would not be playing with 500 billion in debt. So last time I tried this, I focused on doing the small improvements that I know Japan can do, because there are things like hybrid car initiative and tax break for, or rather low tax for petroleum. So to get the same amount of cars on the roads, petroleum usage and hybrid car utilization, I removed the hybrid car initiative, increased the tax on petroleum, and slightly remove how many new roads are built. Slightly reduce how many roads are built, new roads are built. And that keeps the amount of cars on the road same, doesn't do an uncomfortable subsidization. I also reduce the carbon demands on cars, but I make petroleum so much more expensive that it actually evens out. And through those programs being removed, I make about 1 trillion, and we start at a 7 trillion deficit. There's also other stuff you can do because there's zero drug usage in the beginning, and thus you can actually tax drugs and make money from that. And there's very high amounts of border patrol, and you can purchase the passport, but you can only purchase it as a very wealthy person. So instead of making it a very wealthy, and you can move to the country if you're skilled. And I thought maybe balance it out a little, sell passports, but increase restrictions on how much you have to know about the country, for example. Make it so that you, on top of being skilled, have to know the language before you're allowed to move there, for example, while at the same time considerably easing the restrictions on when you can purchase a passport if you are already familiar with the culture. Many of those small updates make about 1 trillion each in terms of yen, which if we take this to mean the planetary economy, because the numbers are comparable, then we are talking about 1 trillion for the planetary economy if we make those programs. But I got the economy in one election term to be slightly positive, but because I'd been mostly removing programs, I lost the election because I had a very bad public appearance. So this time I'm going to be doing this thing at the beginning. Libertarian. And a lot of these numbers aren't absolute, like Japan has more than 3 political parties and so on and so forth. So here's the starting situation. We're at 9 trillion deficit. So payroll tax to maximum is about 6 trillion. Sales tax to maximum is about 6 trillion. And income tax to maximum is about 12 trillion. Actually, it's closer to 16 trillion. So income tax is basically the only way we can tackle this. I'm also noticing that income tax can be raised quite far until it starts to have a really deleterious effect on GDP. It's basically about here where we can go. Middle income gets completely humped, so we have to focus on improving middle income the most after we do this. And we have insufficient points, and doing many transitions in the same field can be frowned upon. So you have to set it at the right job immediately. And yes, in fact, fishing quota should be done at the moment. The opinion of the most well-known fishermen or well-informed fishermen is that while you cannot yet universally see that all fishing regions have a lessening catch, in that some fishing regions do in fact still produce more than they used to produce. What is nearly universal for the entire planet is that individual fishes caught tend to be smaller. So I would call that an alarming warning sign. So there tends to be, in many fisheries, the same amount of fish overall, but the individual fish caught are smaller. You have to know very much about the country before we'll give you the passport, but money itself is no objection. But you do know much. That's one change. That made us around 100 million. Unemployment is up because there's more people in the country. Working age people are moving in. After the first tax increase, we have a 2 trillion deficit. That's not much, but I would prefer to get it done with immediately instead of after a while. There was some kind of law which I couldn't find in my previous playthrough, which was a penalty if you move wealth you made in the country out of the country. And that law completely, if it's at maximum, stops multinational tax evasion, but it has a very negative effect on the economy. And I had a huge multinational tax evasion problem, and I couldn't find it. And it's a very good law at that particular point, but sometimes these things happen. Corporate exit, this is already pretty high. Wouldn't mess with that. I'm looking at cheap payroll tax. Ei pidä tehdä valtion, vaan se pitää tehdä sillä, että sen voi jonkun ajan päästä, mutta valtion pitää ehdottomasti rangaista niitä ja näyttää se, että ei kuitenkaan niin kuin sinällään ole hyvä asia, mutta niin kuin, antaa sen nyt olla. Tämän mä kansalaan ja tätä mä nostan. PKT tulee alas. Tax evasion. Siinä on marssit. It's Japan. I don't think they need to be told it's very hard not to litter. Find it unlikely that the Japanese will litter either way. So let us ease up on it, eh? And I believe we have improved health enough. I would understand if we were a particularly unhealthy nation. But let us try to focus on the executive term limit because I'm not going to be playing this for more than 3 anyway. And it gives us a huge bonus for the election. Reject. It's all starting to look relatively good. Can we do term limits now? I am completely blind to this. Olen puhtaampi ilma. We're talking compulsory. I'm pretty sure I lost. Yeah, I lost. It's pretty close though. So I have to reshuffle my entire cabinet at the beginning and make them all about campaigning, otherwise I lose. And I have to treat the election promises if I start to make them a reality immediately. After I make the pledge, I'll start to move in the direction. So that was pretty good. The economy was actually fixable, but you do have to go pretty high on one of the categories of the three main tax categories. Not maximum, others stay at normal. I think I chose payroll tax because it increased unemployment mostly, and then I started to fund, after we had a surplus, a lot of the unemployment programs that were like helping the unemployment and the GDP, and then we like got into the better part of it. So yeah, that was a good one. Thank you.